Israel has rejected a Gaza peace plan backed by U.S. President Donald Trump.
Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says Israel will not withdraw its troops until Hamas is fully disarmed. He also says there will be no Palestinian state for as long as he remains prime minister.
Well, the proposal, spearheaded by Mr. Trump's Board of Peace, aims to move the Gaza truce into its second phase. Now, under the plan, Hamas would disarm while Israeli forces withdraw in stages, sector by sector. Hamas has agreed to the proposal.
But Israel's rejection puts the next phase in doubt. The Gaza envoy to the Board of Peace says discussions are still ongoing and insists the proposal is the only way forward to prevent a repeat of the October 7th attacks.
Well, for more, we are joined by Stephen Zunes, professor of politics at the University of San Francisco. Thank you so much for joining us, Professor. So it seems that Israel had already signaled its opposition to the U.S. plan, but Netanyahu's latest rejection seemed more explicit and directed at the White House. Why choose to confront Mr. Trump so publicly now?
Perhaps it's part of election year strategy. Believe it or not, there's some candidates who are running to Netanyahu's right, and he wants to seem tough, so it may be just maneuvering, and he might compromise down the road. It's also possible that he thinks that he can get Trump to move the goalpost, if you will, more in his direction. We've seen this several times before, and during Biden's presidency as well, where the United States would make a proposal, Hamas would accept it, Israel would say it has to be changed this way or the other. The United States would then modify the proposal to fit Israel's concerns, and when Hamas rejected it, they could then blame Hamas. So we could very, very possibly see that kind of scenario as well.
Professor, here's what I'm curious about. Netanyahu didn't just say disarm before we withdraw on Sunday. He rejected the 15-point document outright, also ruling out a Palestinian state. So is disarmament sequencing, as some reports suggest, the real sticking point, or is there, actually a broader rejection of where this plan was going all this time?
Well, the proposal called for simultaneous phased withdrawal of Israeli occupation forces that now control 70% of Gaza, with the phased disarmament of Hamas. And what Israel is insisting upon is that Hamas totally disarm first. But the fact that he rejected the plan altogether and underscored his opposition for any kind of Palestinian state makes me think that he, in fact, is going to find other issues to use as an excuse for not moving forward, in the hopes that the United States, as it has in the past, would be reluctant to press him to make the necessary compromises.
And Professor Zunes, going back to the point you made earlier about domestic pressure in politics, if Netanyahu indeed bowed to domestic pressure, it means basically he's now caught between a rock and a hard place. The U.S. plan on the one hand and his polling numbers on the other. So what is he hoping, will happen now to perhaps salvage both?
I think what he's hoping is that the United States once again will buckle. I mean, Israel has violated the ceasefire agreement in Gaza literally hundreds of times, with airstrikes and with taking over larger swaths of territory in Gaza, engaging in large-scale destruction of entire neighborhoods and the like, and with apparently no pressure from the United States not to do so. So he may just be assuming that Trump will back off again. At the same time, I think that Trump really wants a victory here. He wants to show something good has come of his efforts. And so, it's very possible he might end up putting on some pressure, but it remains to be seen.
Speaking of being caught between a rock and a hard place, Mr. Trump also faces a choice between changing his plan to accommodate Netanyahu and standing behind a framework his own administration has championed. So what are the political and diplomatic costs of each course for Mr. Trump?
Well, one thing that's working in his favor, actually, is that because of the on-again, off-again war in Lebanon and Israel's continued occupation of a large part of the southern part of that country, the conflict in the Red Sea with the Houthis, and of course what's happening with the Strait of Hormuz and Iran, everything else, that the international community and U.S. policymakers are pretty distracted by these other issues. And perhaps there's hope that with Gaza not in the headlines, these things can just be postponed and not much happening. But of course, that's a very risky strategy because it could mean a resumption of fighting there as well. And of course, there will be international pressure given the strong humanitarian problems that still exist in Gaza. And finally, I think the fact that Trump brought in other countries, even though the board of peace is still very much in his control, would indicate, I think, there may be some other parties within it that might try to say, hey, we signed up for this thing because you promised this would bring peace to Gaza. Let's see if you can deliver.
And how about Hamas? What do they do now? Do they hold its position, offer further concessions, or just wait for Washington to pressure Israel?
Well, obviously, they don't like to give up power. And in many ways, Israeli intransigence plays into their own hands and their own intransigence. And so I think that, but they do have a point that this idea that they have to somehow unilaterally disarm before Israel withdraws at all, doesn't give guarantees that there'll be this quid pro quo. I mean, it would be a big sacrifice, obviously for them, who their whole identity has been part of an armed struggle, to give that up and not see anything in return. So they're going to probably hold pretty firm that any disarmament has to be simultaneous with a phased Israeli withdrawal.
Final one for you, Professor Zunes. Netanyahu sits on the board of peace. He's now rejecting the plan it produced. So, does this all undermine the credibility of the body in any way, or does it actually give Netanyahu, I guess, some leverage, some room to shape what comes next from inside?
Obviously, he'll try to use his influence, but my sense is that the board members want to have some kind of accomplishments. We already have that group of technocratic Palestinian exiles and others who are ready to come in and replace Hamas as the governing body there. They've been sitting in Cairo for months, hoping to move in. So I think there'll be some pressure for some kind of movement forward. And my guess would there's going to be some increasing resentment at Netanyahu's intransigence. Whether that'll make a difference, whether Netanyahu will give into that pressure, it remains to be seen. My guess is that he'll actually use his intransigence to his favor in Israeli domestic politics, saying, "Hey, the whole international community, even the board of peace that Trump handpicked, is pushing against me, and I'm rejecting it." So, unfortunately, I really do not have a lot of hope that this peace plan is going to move forward, at least anytime soon.
Okay, Professor, thank you very much for your insight this morning. Stephen Zunes, Professor of Politics at the University of San Francisco.